Hi there, I'm Lesley Bonds. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a Guided Pathways Regional Coordinator that supports Allan Hancock College and other colleges throughout the greater Los Angeles region. I'm here to share a little bit about how disciplined faculty can engage in outreach and onboarding efforts to really improve the student experience. And my understanding of this work has really come from my own personal experiences as a first-generation student, but also as my experience as an administrator at a California community college and also as a career counselor supporting students as they are exploring their majors and their career choices. So to get started, I thought I would share a bit of my own positionality because that really informs how I make sense of everything about this particular topic. And so that is a photo of me here on the screen that you'll see. That was me at 17 years old at my college orientation. And the photo in the upper right is a photo of Oildale, California, where I was born and raised. I was a first-generation high school graduate, which of course means I was a first-generation college student and graduate student. And as I was exploring my options in high school, I submitted my applications to colleges in California where I got fee waivers, but I also really wanted to go as far away from home as possible. And so in the bottom right, you'll see where I chose to go to my undergraduate, and that was at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, about 3,000 miles away from home. So I want to share a bit about the things that really worked in my experience and the things that didn't go so well. And so I'm going to start with the not so good. And so as a first generation college student, what I remember about my orientation primarily was taking an assessment test, registering for classes, and following an orientation leader who was another student around a very muggy, humid campus. And it was a long day. It was the day just before classes started because I was an out-of-state student. And I left my orientation with a full schedule of 5 classes: calculus, chemistry, biology, a world religions course, and a 400 level course called Ethics and International Affairs. And that course, really wasn't aligned with my interests necessarily, but it counted toward a gen ed requirement. And so I took what I could get because classes were full at that point. And so in that course, I remember feeling a bit over my head, really thinking, my goodness, I could have used a history course or a poli-sci course as a prereq for this. But I was doing my best. I was studying as much as I could. And our first test came upon us. And when that test happened, I think it was a Tuesday, my instructor said, don't forget to bring your blue book to class on Thursday for the test. And so I showed up on Thursday, and she's getting the test started, and I pull out my blue book and my notes, and I'm preparing, and she said, what are you doing? And I kind of looked at her wide-eyed, and she said, where's your blue book? And I pointed to my textbook. My textbook for the course was blue, and so I thought it was an open book test. And it wasn't. It turns out a blue book is something specific that students need to write essay tests. But I never knew that. Nobody had ever told me that. I don't remember that from an orientation. She never let us know. And so she kicked me out of the class, and I failed my first test in college. But on the other hand, there is some good as well. And so as a college student, I worked 4 different jobs on campus. I worked full time. And so some of the regulars started to recognize me. And one of those regulars, you see her photo here on the screen. This is Dr. Nottingham. We lovingly call her Doc Knott. And she would strike up conversation with me when she was grabbing her lunch in the student union. And as she got to know me and got to know my interests, she really encouraged me to pursue a degree in leadership studies. It was a program that she had started, she was very passionate about, and I did. I pursued a degree in leadership studies and ultimately went on to get my master's degree in college student affairs administration, largely because a single faculty member connected with me outside of the classroom, got to know me and my interests, and connected those interests and those strengths and those skills that I had to a program and a career path that I never knew existed. And so while the first example that I gave was Really not so great example of how faculty can influence a student's experience. There is much good to share as well. And so now I'd love for you to pause this video and take a moment to kind of reflect on your own college experience. Think back to your first interactions with faculty or staff from the college. Think about those first few weeks when you just started your college journey, and really think about those people, the faculty, the staff, the students who shaped your experience for better or for worse. What really worked and what didn't work so well. And now that you've taken the time to kind of think about your own experience, I do want to share a bit of data about why disciplined faculty engagement in outreach and onboarding is critical. So I pulled a few snippets here. Truthfully, I could have 100 slides of references to data that indicate students really look to faculty for information about their college experience. What we know is that students who are pursuing college, particularly community colleges, find the onboarding process especially overwhelming. And so they often give up in that process. It's unclear, they don't feel connected, they feel like a number. These are things that we've heard a million times. But we also know that students are going to feel more connected to the institution, going to feel more invested in their own college experience when they have a solid sense of how that experience is connecting to their long-term goals. And this is particularly true for BIPOC students who are coming to us telling us that they're coming to college because they want to make a better life for them and their families, that they want a college degree for socioeconomic mobility. And of course, we've seen in a million surveys, I work with many colleges, and I often see that students routinely report that faculty are their primary source of information about campus resources and supports. And so it's no surprise that CESI, which is one of the leading research organizations, repeatedly finds that student-faculty interaction in and out of the class is one of the key benchmark indicators that lets us know if a student's going to be successful in their courses, persist from one term to the next, and complete their degrees and certificates. And I thought this particular quote was especially interesting, is that students are indicating as they are entering community colleges, they want to connect with a faculty member or an advisor who knows the field or fields they're attracted to. And so while we certainly have outreach teams that are supporting students and trying to help them get connected to certain majors, maybe meta majors, or career fields, career paths that they can pursue, the truth is that our outreach teams and our counselors typically are generalists. They might know a sampling of different career options, but disciplined faculty are the experts in their fields. They know not only the career options that are available to students, but truthfully the kind of degrees, advanced degrees that a student might need to be successful, the salary outlook. They're keeping up with where the direction of their field is going, where students might be able to expect to get a job when they graduate from college. So it really highlights the importance of disciplined faculty engagement in the outreach and onboarding process. And so now I want to situate what we know from the data in the context of Allan Hancock College's challenges and opportunities. So it is probably no surprise to you to see this chart, which shows that Allan Hancock College's headcounts are declining. This is not unique to Allan Hancock. It's something that's happening statewide and even nationally. But what it does present is an opportunity for us to kind of investigate why it is that students are not choosing college, why new prospective students straight from high school are not enrolling, but also why students who were previously enrolled are not returning. When we talk about headcount declines, we really need to be clear that this is, yes, about high school yield, but even more than that, it is about retaining the students we have. And so if you have this big bucket that you keep pouring into, but it has a hole in the bottom, all of this work is for naught. So I want to be clear when I share this information that we should be thinking about outreach and onboarding as an ongoing process, one that happens not just with 18-year-old high school students in their senior year, but also with the students who are already on your campus that we want to help to retain and get them to come back the next term. So I want to share this information in the context of retention efforts about students' drop decisions. In a recent survey that you can get the link to here in this slide deck, your institutional effectiveness office found that of those students who dropped, only 14% of those students indicated that they spoke with their instructor before dropping their course. And so I see this as a really big opportunity to intervene, and sometimes, yes, that student does need to drop the course and return, but they need to feel welcomed in coming back and supported in making that decision. And so are there interventions that we can either bring them back into the fold or prevent them from ever dropping if possible? And now all of this also is highlighted in a report by the RP Group. You might know that the RP Group, your college commissioned to come in and conduct some focus groups and deliver their recommendations about the college based on that information. In their report, they organized their recommendations along the 4 pillars, the Guided Pathways pillars, but I'm only going to highlight the first 2 pillars today. And so the first is clarifying the path. And in their recommendations, you see that they suggest that the college needs to increase their physical presence at local area high schools and reduce the student-to-counselor ratio in ed planning workshops. Now, the first is pretty simple math. The more faculty that are engaged in outreach and onboarding, the more hands on deck, the greater your reach can be. So that's a really simple kind of support that we can provide to our outreach team. But secondarily, this ed planning workshop component involves a lot more than ed planning. And if you chat with any counselor, you'll hear this from them, that certainly they want students to leave with a list of courses that they need to pursue. But before they do that, there are conversations about the students' interests and goals. And those pieces, again, if you think back to what students indicate, they want to be chatting with somebody who has specific experience in the field or fields of their interest. And so disciplined faculty involvement in those ed planning workshops out at those high schools can help your counselors really direct their focus on the ed planning, on building a plan that a student can enroll in those courses and complete on time in a way that fulfills the requirements for whatever transfer destination or program of study that they're pursuing. So the second group of recommendations from the RP group is around entering the path. And this I think of as sort of once the student has already gone through the orientation process and is enrolled in their classes, what is happening in that first week or 2 on campus. And their recommendations have a lot to do with capacity and accuracy. So they talk about this idea that we need to increase capacity of the counseling center, that there are long wait times in the first couple of weeks, and that the information that students are receiving is not always accurate. We hear these kinds of complaints again across the state. This is not necessarily unique to Allan Hancock. And I do for a minute want to defend the counselors for a second that really we are asking them to be all things to all students all the time. We're asking them to know about every program of study, every possible transfer pathway, every possible special admit situation, and they're taking all of that into account as they're guiding students along the way. It's simply an unfair ask. And so involving disciplined faculty in increasing the capacity means that we can do a bit of triage on the front end before we send a student straight to the counseling center. Are there some pieces of information that we can equip disciplined faculty with so that they can upfront answer a student's question, show them how to get to their portal, show them how to add or drop a class, access information about financial aid, get their book voucher situated. These are things that are not necessarily a counselor-specific kind of question. It's something that a disciplined faculty could answer and prevent that student from sitting in that line waiting for a counselor. And now in terms of accuracy, of course, disciplined faculty engagement is key here. You all are seeing the updates to your program in live time. You're tracking every curricular change. You're in touch with what's happening at transfer institutions. And so you having a relationship with the counselor can improve the accuracy, specifically if we allow our counselors to become a little bit more specialized. And then their final recommendation here is equip everyone at Allan Hancock to be a source of student support. And so that's really the message of this presentation, that we're seeking to bring disciplined faculty into the student support infrastructure because you all have the most interaction with students. You see them more than any other entity on campus, and they trust you. They indicate repeatedly that they trust their disciplined faculty to give them information and support. And so that's really our goal here, is that we build a cohesive infrastructure across student affairs and instruction as we do the outreach and onboarding that sets students up for success. So now let's kind of switch gears and talk about what the goals are for Allan Hancock in making this sort of shift to really deeply engaging disciplined faculty in outreach and onboarding. As I was developing this PowerPoint, I sort of identified these four key areas of outreach that students engage in, and partially this is inspired by some work out of the Community College Research Center of Columbia. And the first three are really where I see disciplined faculty coming into play. That is exploration, and this is guided, supported, informed exploration. I often say, when you're in the car and you get lost, it doesn't feel like an adventure. It's stressful, it's overwhelming, you're feeling a bit frenetic, and so we want to avoid our students feeling that way. Provide them clarity, provide them resources and support to do some informed decision making and exploration early on in their academic career. Second, this is really about connections to the institution, connections to their field of interest, connections to faculty who will support them along the way. If you remember back to my story at the beginning of this presentation, you'll hear that I talked about the difference maker for me being connection. And I would suspect that when you took time to jot down a bit about your own experience, connection is a theme there for you as well. And then finally, inspiration, that students report that they feel inspired, especially by faculty who look like them, who are doing great things. And that's really what we want to instill in our students, is for them to feel inspired about their choices in their academic studies and their career choices. And then finally, that takes us to planning. And so disciplined faculty engaging in support of students around exploration, connection, and inspiration really allows your counselors to focus on the planning piece so that they can deliver accurate information to support students in enrolling in the courses they need to complete on time. So if you have questions, please feel free to reach out and connect with me. You'll see a couple of social media links here as well, but you can always shoot me an email. I'm happy to stay in touch with you. You don't have to go through Jenny Schroeder, your Guided Pathways lead. Although she is incredible, you can contact me directly if you need any support.